You're listening to another episode of the Philly Sports Jabronis. Tonight's podcast is being recorded live at Nipper's Bar and Pizza on Main Street in Jeffersonville, Pennsylvania. And now, on with the show. Philly Sports Jabronis. I'm Joe Dara with Mike Greger, Rob Sr., and Jamie Toman. Carlos Slade is apparently en route. Evidently en route. We are here live at Nippers for another Football Thursday. Got a lot to get into this evening. We're going to probably stretch the limits of Football Thursday and get into some Phillies talk, maybe a Hall of Famer or two, touch on the Sixers if we can. I want to thank Nippers for having us again. Of course, you may be listening to us syndicated on the Grueling Truth and or Wildfire Radio on Friday afternoons or sometime over the weekend on the Grueling Truth. Visit Wildfire Radio and the Grueling Truth online to find us. And, of course, always can download us on iTunes and iHeartRadio. Okay, yeah, so as I said, a lot to kind of get into this week. It was an interesting championship Sunday, right? The first NFL championship Sunday in which both games went to overtime. Possibly then, I guess, with the cherry on top is the first NFL championship Sunday for both games to go to overtime and both games to have rather, at least casual controversies involved. So I just want to put it this way because I don't want to drag my monologue on too long here. If you're the New Orleans Saints, if you're the fan base, let's focus on the fan base here for a second. And I agree that at some point you kind of just have to stop complaining about it, right? Especially in the here and the now. They're not going to cancel the Super Bowl. They're not going to bring the NFC Championship game back. They're not going to do anything other than issue a half-hearted apology of sorts. But if you're the new,
they might not have even done that, right?
Well, I guess by half-hearted I mean they admitted that they were wrong. Maybe that's probably not even an apology. It's probably more of a slap in the face. But if you're a New Orleans Saints fan, how do you ever get over this to the point that you don't think that your season will ever get sabotaged again? And when I say as a backdrop, the comparison that I'll give is the Fog Bowl in Philadelphia, where it's like I don't think that we obsess over it or anything. I don't think that people lose sleep over it. I don't think that it gets mentioned every Sunday or anything like that. But it does come up. So using that as a backdrop, as some sort of precedent. Again, two totally different examples, but two games that really, by and large, are characterized by how the officials handled certain things in a playoff game. Obviously, New Orleans is a couple minutes from the Super Bowl, whereas the Eagles were not quite a couple minutes from the Super Bowl. But using that as a backdrop, and whatever your opinions are related to the non-call, if anyone can try to explain to me how you think Saints fans can go into next year and the year after and the year after and just not kind of worry that there's a potential for your season to be sabotaged. Like how do you remain excited about the NFL when you have that kind of hanging over your head? And I know it wasn't the last play of the game, and that an interception on the part of Drew Brees came into play, and the defense could have stopped them. And there are circumstances. But take it from there, guys, and try to let me know how a New Orleans Saints fan can still remain an NFL fan the way that game kind of played out.
I remember, it's before my time. I was on the planet at the time, but I was a kid. But my dad used to always complain that when the Flyers could have won their third cup in a row, there was an egregious non-call on an offsides that cost pretty much the Flyers the third cup, and he talked to that. I mean, he died a year and a half ago, and that was like 3 weeks before he died. He was talking about that. So yeah, it's something that's going to keep with you forever. It's one of those things that's just so bad that you just stick with it and do it. And I don't remember the call obviously, but he did, and he never got over it. It's one of those things. And when it comes to the Saints, I don't care.
Even with a boiler, there's at least a boilermaker on that team.
I mean, you literally took my example down to the sport and the incident from the other side. That was the start of the Islander dynasty, the one that I have been told about since I was a little kid. I even know the name of the linesman who made the call was Leon Steckel. Bobby Nystrom was, and I've seen the replay of this, Bobby Nystrom was 3 strides into the zone. And then the pass came, and he slams it home, ties the game, goes to overtime, the Islanders win the cup. Yes, there was a time the Islanders could have played the Flyers in the Stanley Cup, but whatever. And so to Islanders fans, it's just this wonderful thing that kind of happened before the really wonderful thing happened, right? So St. Louis Cardinals fans got over Don Denkinger, okay? University of Michigan fans got over 2016 in Ohio State. Okay, no, we didn't, but we survived. These things happen. Life goes on, and passion's important. You don't have sports without fans. You don't have fans without passion. But if you want to look at things on this grand biblical, how do we ever get over it scale? 13 years ago, the stadium where that game was played was a literal fucking walking morgue in one of the greatest disasters to ever hit our country. Your city survived that. Oh, by the way, 90% of you, or should I say y'all, won't care at all as soon as LSU starts spring practice. You'll get over it. It's okay. Oh, by the way, you wouldn't have won last year either. So, yeah, who cares about the Saints? Too bad.
I think it's still fresh. It's still a fresh wound. So that's why all this is going on down there. I think, the LSU plays and they'll get over some of this. But I think the other thing, I was reading this today with Sean Payton kind of alluded to this, is you use it to somehow to your advantage, right? And they're going to be more involved with changing the rules and being on the rules committee and have a more active role and voice in that. So take that negative energy and use it to change the rules and make the game better. I think that's what you have to do.
And that's actually a good point and a good a good transition to one point I wanted to make related to my characterizing of, if you're a Saints fan, how do you get over this? For me personally, and maybe this is recency bias, but I'm having a hard time remembering an NFL that seemed to have a recurring problem with officiating and bad calls or no calls, not just in the general sense, but in really in marquee matchups and in obviously playoff games. Does anyone else? Am I wrong with that? Is there a new kind of dynamic to how poorly officiating the NFL has become? I do think part of it is that with replay, it kind of and replay inherently I think is a good idea, right? But with the way replay, and I can remember being in high school, even before high school, and when there was no replay, and really thinking, not just thinking, but I remember conversations happening in the living room with the kids and the adults alike about how there needs to be replay. Like there was back then there were so many egregious non-calls or poor calls or whatever that you felt like you needed replay. Now we're in a reality where we have replay almost all the time, and I think it actually, although I'm not in any way suggesting that we not have replay, I do think that the length of time that gets spent on calls kind of adds to the just overall difficulty in being a fan right now and watching what is happening with the officiating and how it's impacting the games. And as an example to reviews, bit of a different circumstance, but in the New England game, in the New England Chiefs game, we had a situation where a call was overturned that they needed to look at the did Julian Edelman did he or did he not muff the punt. And to me, when it takes that long to make a decision, and you've seen, we all saw the angles, we all saw which angles look more to the Chiefs' favor and which angles look more to the Patriots' favor. But when you compound the no call in the Saints game with the reversal of what does not seem to be undisputable evidence in the Chiefs game, and you have this Super Bowl set up, how does, with that all coming together, how bad is this for the NFL? And if you're the teams that missed out on the Super Bowl, so lump the Chiefs fans in this as well. How are you telling yourself exactly what you guys are saying? Do you think, and that it's not going to be a problem ongoing? I mean, like you said, the rules will be changed. So, as far as that goes, what do you think? Where are we going with the possible changing of rules?
Well, I think first they were talking about just adjusting the overtime rules again, because it seems like it hasn't changed that much. Like, I forget the percentage. It was like 80% or something of the teams that win the toss go down to score a touchdown. So eliminating the field goal to win didn't really solve the overtime problem. So that was the one major thing that they've been talking about. I don't know in terms of, because on that Saints play they didn't make a call, so I don't know how you fix that. You can't challenge a call that didn't happen.
And that's probably that right there is the strangest thing. Like, forget about the head-to-head contact. Like, how does that call not get made? Like, you can't fix a no call, right? It's just.
And we're so immune with the way the refs work nowadays that they throw the flag for everything. To have a total non-call is just mind-blowing.
Does anyone think that there's a shred of, a ref having a financial stake in this game? Because I'm having a hard time thinking that it's not.
Boy, I hope so, because then I just got to decide which side they're on, and my life gets so much easier.
Because that's of all the four major sports, I think the NFL would be the one that would not be able to overcome.
Is it broke ass? What's the guy from Delco?
Donahue.
Well, there's so many NBA games, there's so many baseball games, there's so many hockey games that I think people kind of just, if they're going to bet, they're going to bet. There's so many games that but in the NFL, where now we obviously have a couple games, a couple days a week, but if the NFL if there was ever a scandal of sorts uncovered, I don't know how the NFL would ever get over it. So is anyone seriously thinking that that's got anything to do with the non-call?
I don't. I think there's the league is worth so much money that there's not enough individual money to make it worthwhile for something like that to happen.
There's so many eyes on every NFL game. I don't think you'd get away with it.
I mean, that's almost racketeering at that point if something was to go sideways. And I don't think so.
It's a really bad look though, because in one championship game you have a helmet to helmet pass interference. Almost everyone in the world would say that's pass interference, getting no called, and then just a few hours later, you've got someone getting called for roughing the passer when he may have gotten a palm on flesh.
Well, you got 60-year-old guys trying to chase after 20-year-old or mid-20 elite athletes and make a call on the field. So I don't think there's anything egregious. I think it's probably incompetence. I don't know how you solve it except for a referee review. But
what's worse, incompetence or an actual ref wanting to tilt the game his own way?
Well, I think the second one's worse, because incompetence could theoretically be solved by replacing the individual. If you have an individual who is intentionally altering the outcomes, removing him alone does not remove the stigma from your sport. Hypothetically, if they come out tomorrow and they just say, that back judge who missed that call in New Orleans, we've looked at his performance reviews, he's the worst back judge in the last 20 years, you fire him. Yeah, okay, a couple people in Louisiana are still pissed off, but largely your problem is solved. You found out tomorrow that guy had $150,000 riding on the under and didn't want the game going to overtime 27-27. Now you've got a problem that permeates every level of your sport. Every referee is tainted. Look at Donahue. He was one guy who got caught up with God knows who. Well, actually, some people know who. But every NBA official bore the brunt of it. Okay? Now, what can you do about it? I don't know. I think things can be orchestrated in the following way. If you were to say before the Super Bowl, okay, when that tight end lines up on the end of the line and he runs into the flat and the receiver runs the cross, if that tight end makes contact with the corner, that is offensive pass interference. You guys need to call that every time it happens. Okay. Now you're orchestrating a problem for the New England Patriots, right? Mm-hmm. Because they run a ton of those rub routes. If you say the opposite, this is not offensive pass interference, this is incidental contact. Now you're orchestrating something that could be beneficial to the New England Patriots. I think that happened a lot in the 2000s, early 2000s NBA. The Lakers and Kings. What is a foul against Shaquille? What is not a foul against Shaquille? We all remember that game, right?
Yeah.
Okay. As far as how do you handle the Julian Edelman play, it's funny. Even though I sat there saying I don't see anything conclusive enough to overturn this, I also sat there saying they're going to give New England the ball. And I think that the emphasis has kind of turned from can we conclusively prove the call on the field was wrong to if we're not sure the call on the field was right, let's just keep things status quo. Let's not potentially change the outcome of the game on a call we're not sure about. And that's not supposed to be the way you handle replay.
Carlos is in the house. Anything to add?
Nothing, because I'm still trying to catch up over here.
All right, fair enough. I thought that might be the case, but I wanted to at least throw it out there. So we'll start with you then, Carlos, on this question. And we all texted about this as a group earlier, and this is kind of being hijacked by from CSN Philly. There was an article written about who would be worth suing, related to Philadelphia sports outcome, playing off of apparently the entire New Orleans fan base and then some wanting to sue everyone and their mother. So Carlos, let's start with you from a Raiders standpoint, I guess. Who would you most likely sue or want to sue or think about suing, or who you pissed off at?
Walter effing Coleman would be the guy that I'm pissed off at. Tuck rule all day. It's really that simple. I mean, you can sit there and watch that play, and it's a fumble. Everyone knew it was a fumble. Everyone knew New England was going to find a way to get that ball back due to a ruling. That's the lawsuit right there. I mean, I don't really have to say much more about it. Just put in a tape. That's the dude that needs to be sued. The dude that just retired this year. The dude, I'm not allowed to sit there. I'm pulling Steve Smith. I'm not sitting there and saying I'm going to make any threats. Yada, yada.
That is still the trump card. That is still...
But, yeah, that's easily the one for the Raiders. I mean, that goes above the immaculate deception. That was another bad call by a ref, but a little bit before my time, and that was what it was. So, yeah, Walt Coleman for me, easily.
All right, before we keep going around the table, is there a suggested any Philly one that you would throw in there?
Hey, Jay, who was the guy that stopped the Taylor fight? Was that Steele?
Oh. Yeah, definitely.
Richard Steele.
Richard Steele. Yeah, Richard Steele should went to prison.
Yeah.
Not just a lawsuit. He should go to prison. Oh, yeah.
Rob the boy of a title, basically.
Yeah. He was 5 seconds away from beating Chavez, and they stopped, and he stopped it when he shouldn't have. And yeah, it's disgusting.
All right, Rob, why don't you give us a New York and a Philly?
Okay. So you want a bad call for New York? It's tough. I really don't blame too many well-known New York losses.
I don't think it has to be a
on
bad
officiating.
Call. Yeah. Bad play.
I feel like
bad call from a manager, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, New York's bad losses pretty much come down to either historical chokes, high New York Mets, or New York Jets, or curses, quote unquote, with the Rangers for all those years. Beat Yankees. Like, what are we going to complain about there? We got it pretty good.
Well, is there anyone? So let me.
I got one. Charles Smith. How's that? How's Charles Smith? I believe the guy had half a dozen, I'm not exaggerating, attempts at the rim in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals back in '93. Pippen blocked 3. He missed a 5th, and I think time ran out before his 6th attempt. If you ever look this up, it was their chance to end the Jordan dynasty, the Knicks. And this guy had the ball under the rim, and he just could not finish on a layup. I guess I'd go after him because I really cannot think of a bad call that hurt New York to that degree. For Philadelphia, I mean, we already talked about that Flyers offsides, and that is the most flagrant one I can remember.
And feel free to go beyond the bad call, domain. You could sue it because legally speaking, anyone can sue anybody. Like you could walk in and say, I want to sue whoever put in this this stop sign because I don't feel like stopping here.
Who was the guy for the Sixers that traded Moses and the #1 draft pick for Roy Hinson and Jeff Rulin? Whoever the hell that was, you could probably get a few dollars in damages from him.
It's
you can also make a pretty penny off of Billy King if you want to sit there and go that route.
Which leads me up to mine, which is I will sue Norman Brayman for letting Reggie White leave the Eagles.
Jamie, you stole mine. I gotta come up with a new one. He is the ultimate son of a bitch that I think exists in Philadelphia professional sports.
The most awful thing
he
that ever
is
happened.
A scumbucket.
to let Reggie walk is.
I thought God told him to go.
Well, yeah, I mean, as a side note, Reggie found God in his wallet, but
people talk on their phones.
Reggie definitely found God in his wallet as a sidebar, but it's Norman Brayman's fault, inherently. Mike.
Oh man, I don't even know where to begin. There's been so much heartbreak in this town for so many years. I don't know that I'd sue anyone. I guess the obvious answer that everyone's going to say that the Patriots cheated in that first Super Bowl. I don't buy that argument, but I guess I'm going to sue someone. I'd probably just sue Andy Reid for all the friggin' years that I wasted.
Oh wait, there's a difference between wasted years and getting wasted during those
Both. Both. I mean, just watching the clock mismanagement. Timeout situations.
All right, well that in a silo I think is fair. I was ready to roll out with Norman Brayman. Can we sue him twice?
It's not like Reggie's the only guy who walked away during that era.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, Norman Brayman allowed a team that could have been a dynasty. Now, granted, there were definitely there were warts on that team, and Buddy Ryan, made mistakes, but Norman, it begins and ends with Norman Brayman for the most part. Man, I'll throw out a real obscure one. How about Danny Tartable for the Phillies? He signed as a free agent after the '92 season, had one at bat.
Oh God, you want to go that route? How about Bynum?
Let's go bowling. Yeah.
Bynum's a good one. Bynum's actually, you know what? Sean Bradley. I'm still mad about Sean Bradley. And it's not his fault.
Yeah, you're suing him.
It's not his fault.
Or the people that drafted him. But if you're gonna start suing players, we can make some big lists.
I love Markel Fultz.
Sorry, he can't do anything about his genetics.
He could have said no. He could have went back to the.
He literally got paid for being 7'6"
to the hut that he was playing in front of.
Yeah, and he had a good career.
Yeah, he actually didn't have a horrible career. He was just wrong place and wrong time. If he would have stayed in school another year, that's what I would tell. I wouldn't sue him. I would just go back and say, look, just stay in school another year.
Oh man, I got one.
Okay.
This is a little dark. The friggin' bartender who let Pelly drive home that night.
Oh man.
Oh.
Well,
I mean,
That's dark.
Yeah.
Now you're putting your thinking cap on.
well, there's a certain oak tree in Radnor.
I mean, no, that was Darren. Pelly was down.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying we could sue nature, put it, on the oak, oak tree or a redwood that was hanging out on King of Prussia
that
Road.
morning coming down for breakfast, my dad said, "Hey, I got to tell you something." So, he was a huge Flyers fan, and he said, "I'm like, what?" Yeah, it was unreal when it happened.
Yeah, I mean,
I
would have only been like 7 at the time, I think, but to hear my hockey-obsessed uncles tell it, Ellie was like Hasek with the reflexes of... I'm sorry, Hasek's reflexes with Waz, sense for the big game moment. Helly was apparently everything, and they're still trying to replace him.
Yeah, that's funny. I remember that morning coming downstairs for breakfast. My dad was going to tell you Helly's dead. I'm like,
yeah, it's
just out of nowhere like that.
Yeah. All right, we'll pass this around real quick. Start with Mike and go around the table. We're going to get to a break here in about 5 minutes, and when we come back from the break, we'll try to go beyond the football convo. But and we have next week to really break down the game next week. But I feel like I'm really kind of, as of right now, uninspired about this matchup, and it's probably mostly because I feel like there's no way the Rams can win, and I'm just not looking forward to watching New England choke on confetti. Well, actually, you know what? That would actually be a good one if someone choked on some confetti as it came falling from the rafters. But I don't see a compelling case for New England to lose this game as of right now. And I really can't remember. It's easily since Dallas was, beating up on the Buffalo Bills for 2 consecutive years, right? That I just kind of remember not being into a Super Bowl as it was coming up. So passing this around real quick. First of all, can someone A, give me any shred of hope that the Rams can win this game? B, give me any shred of hope that it can be a competitive game, one way or the other. And C, just if any terrible Super Bowl memories come to mind, just tell me a Super Bowl that you just kind of thought stunk, and we'll pass it around that way. Mike?
Well, I think Rob's going to handle this one. Obviously, I think the Patriots are going to win, but I do think it's going to be a competitive game. I mean, the Rams have an offense. Belichick's going to figure out a way to shut the key players down. Goff hasn't looked great since we beat them. He's looked terrible. And Belichick's going to make him look even worse. But that being said, I don't think it's a blowout. I think it's probably going to be a touchdown win for the Patriots, maybe 10 points. That's my prediction for that. And I can go, if you want me to go on and rant on my love affair with Brady, I can do that at a later point.
You'll have next week.
The matchup, I think for a number of reasons, is not compelling. I mean, the number one obvious reason is because we were in the Super Bowl last year. Let's not omit the obvious. So, of course, it's going to be a huge letdown and not going to be compelling for us as Philadelphians and Eagles fans. That's number one. But number two, I think when you look at the other matchups that we could have got Andy Reid going back to the Super Bowl and maybe winning with Pat Mahomes and this prolific offense. Didn't get that. You could have got, if you had the Patriots in there, you could have got Breeze versus Brady, 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, 2 of the greatest to ever do it in their 40s. That would have been a compelling matchup. Instead, you get McVay with his smug face and Goff, who looks like Ryan Gosling, and Hollywood and all this, and they're just not fun. I mean, they're fun because they score a lot of points, but they're just kind of, and they don't have a fan base either. Like, it's not, there's nothing going on there. And then you get the Patriots, who everyone hates because it's like vogue to hate them because they win all the time. I don't know. I don't remember everyone hating Jordan and the Bulls all the time, but maybe I missed that. I don't remember that.
Well, I mean, I didn't hate Jordan and the Bulls. It's funny that you say that because I can remember. I have a buddy who is from North Jersey, and it was a long time ago. But I remember saying something to the effect of, "Yeah, everyone kind of liked Jordan, and he actually has one of the more." Great, Rob, you kind of brought up a grave, comment earlier, but, I've heard someone say that the day that Michael Jordan passes away, he's going to have a barbecue. So people did hate Jordan, but we did, Jordan never, the Sixers were so bad that Jordan never crushed our hopes and dreams. So that's why I think, in generally speaking, in Philadelphia, there was not this ongoing hatred of Michael Jordan. He never demolished any of our, he never demolished the Sixers season. You know what I mean? He never stopped the Sixers from doing anything because they were awful.
So explain the hatred of the Patriots.
The Patriots only did it once.
If that's your premise, what's the hatred of the Patriots then?
Well, I mean, they cost the Eagles at least one Super Bowl.
One. And they beat them in the other one.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that one.
Same reason that you, sort of same reason that Carlos has hate. Well, I mean, it goes much deeper than that.
I will take this microphone and shut. Never mind.
The Patriots. Do you want to take that? I was just going to say the Patriots were not the Patriots when his unfortunate.
Yeah,
right. That was the start. That was the start of it.
This is the rematch. This is the rematch of that.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, is there just real quick before we go to Carlos? Is there a Super Bowl that you just kind of like?
Man,
can you remember a Super Bowl that you just kind of didn't really enjoy at all?
I'll tell you. I mean, every Super Bowl growing up for me was terrible because it was the Cowboys and the Niners just beating up on everyone. It was not fun to watch those games. So, I mean, it's fun to watch the greatness, but
I remember Niners, Cincinnati, the same thing. It's just a roll.
Yeah, the Chargers.
That was a bad game.
Steve Young rolling over the Chargers. Like, there were some bad games growing up. And then when after that, when the Eagles were good under those Andy Reid teams, it was the same thing that we're going through now. It was always like, we could have been in this game, and we're not in it, so I don't want to watch this game. I remember the one example I'll give is the Panthers-Patriots. It was like, so watch this friggin' game with these ugly-ass teams going at it.
Yeah.
And the first half was one of the grossest games I've ever seen in my life, but then the second half turned out to be a really great football game.
What was the game where the guy felt like half yard short of scoring?
The Titans.
That was Titans Rams.
Yeah.
That was a great game.
Yeah.
That was a great game.
Yeah,
that was a great game.
That's when I think the game started. Like, it seems like every year since then, at least to me, it started to get better since then. You see him reaching out, and he just, he was
Kevin Dyson.
Yeah,
Mike Jones. Mike Jones.
He's like a quarter of a yard short, and it just didn't go. And you're just like, rooting interest aside, you wanted him to do it.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about the Super Bowl is okay, Tennessee doesn't have a baseball team. I'm going to screw up my analogy here. Okay, if the Cincinnati Reds play the Kansas City Royals in the World Series, I'm not watching it, okay? If I see on Twitter that it's the ninth inning and one team's up 3-something in the series, I might switch over just to see the championship moment.
Sure,
right?
sure.
The St. Louis Rams and the Tennessee... We're betting on the game, yes, that's true too. The St. Louis Rams and the Tennessee Titans might be the two football teams. I mean, they're probably not, but they're among the two football teams that I just have the least interest in. I don't like them, I don't hate them, I just don't care about them. But when they played in the Super Bowl, I watched it. It's an event unto itself, right? The NBA Finals. If you ever have a Memphis Grizzlies versus... I would have said Milwaukee Bucks, but I do like Giannis. Memphis Grizzlies versus Washington Wizards, Indiana Pacers, NBA Finals. I won't watch it. There have been a number of Stanley Cups that I have had very little interest in. But with the Super Bowl, you still watch. Even if it was Bengals and Cardinals, you would watch it. Because the NFL is kind of immune to that provincial, I don't care about this. It goes beyond that. So that being said...
Well, it's one game.
But, right. But, I mean, if the World Series was one game and it was the Reds and the Royals, wouldn't you go spend time with your wife? Like, I don't think I could justify I'm watching the Reds and the Royals, honey. I'm watching the Super Bowl, honey.
Right.
It's totally different. That being said, I guess the Super Bowl, I would say, that just did nothing for me was the Steelers-Seahawks. It was in Detroit. I've never liked the Pittsburgh Steelers because up till that point, I had always heard about all this success they'd had, but their last Super Bowl that they had won before that one happened 2 months to the day after I was born. Sure. So to that point, I had always heard how great this team was, and I was like this?
Well, yeah.
This is the Steel Curtain? Like, this team that plays in this crappy version of the vet that's painted blue and has crappy quarterbacks like Bubby Brister and all that, right? So I never liked them. And then that year was when the Jets lost to them on the Doug Bryan game.
Okay.
So when they won that Super Bowl and it was... I know there was a lot of officiating controversy in that game.
Oh, yeah.
Seahawks have sued a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good call.
I guess that would be an example of a Super Bowl that just did nothing for me. Even those Dallas games, I had somebody to root for or against.
Right, you had the Bills to root for, without any real hope.
Actually, there's a lot of Super Bowls in that, like, end of the Reid era There was Colts and Bears. There was a Steelers-Cardinals game that ended up being a really good game, but
that was a great
once again did nothing
But the
for me
matchup
from a
leading up to it.
interest standpoint. Real quick on the Rams, I'll say this. The Patriots don't blow people out in Super Bowls, okay?
They.
8 times, now 9, Tommy B's gotten there and Belichick's gotten there. Patriots have won 4 of them by a field goal, and the 5th they won in overtime on a touchdown. The ones they've lost, last year was by 8 points, of course, and they lost twice to the Giants by 4 points. Every single time it's been a single-digit game. That would be my argument for why this won't be a blowout. Why could it end in the Rams' favor? Because the Rams do one thing really well that gives Brady specifically and the Patriots in general trouble.
Get home
and
up the middle.
There we go.
Get home up the middle.
And Ndamukong Suh, Aaron Donald, these are problems. They probably force you to use Gronkowski in line. He will not be the downfield threat he was the other day against Kansas City. New England will get their points. You give Bill Belichick 2 weeks to prepare, and he'll score points against a minefield. But so will the Rams. And what you said about they'll take something away. What are you going to take away? Gurley's not 100%. Are you going to invest that kind of resources into C.J. Anderson? They don't really have a go-to receiver. You take away Woods, Brandon Cooks is 95% as good.
Right.
So I think the Rams are kind of built like a Patriots Light or Patriots West. Goff is obviously no Brady, but they have a number of different weapons, no one guy to key on offense, and an underrated defense.
All right, Carlos, Jamie?
As far as the game goes, I'm basically in step with Rob for the same reasons. Might be because we have something in common. So, yeah, I feel like it's going to be a close game. It's definitely a game the Rams can win. Do I think they're going to win it? My money says no. We'll see how that goes. That's about it. I wish I could say something more profound, but he took every single syllable of what I would have said about that entire game. About the only thing that he mentioned that needs to be stated again is if Sue and Donald can get home, that's where the bread and butter is for the Rams. If they can make that happen early and often, you saw what happened last year when Brady was under duress. That's the formula right there. You have to sit there and put him on his back as often as possible, as soon as possible.
All right, fair enough.
To get back to Rob's point where he was saying you always watch a Super Bowl. You're just going to watch it no matter who's playing, and I agree with that. And my girlfriend actually asked me the other day, "Is like you don't like these teams? Would there ever be a Super Bowl that you wouldn't watch?" And I said, "Well, if the Cowboys played the Cowboys, I would want no parts of that Super Bowl, but that can't happen."
Yeah, but it's funny. I've been on record with saying that as long as this current Patriot regime exists, I could never root for them to win a game. So that if the Cowboys, went up against the Patriots, I would have no choice but to root for the Cowboys.
I know we got a break coming.
Insane.
I know we got a break coming up. But after the break, I would like a 60-second summation of why the hell you feel that strongly.
Okay. I'll do my best to do that.
I think we have podcasts where he's gone into that.
I will say, just to add my comment related to Super Bowls, I want to say that I remember. So, Mike, you brought up the Chargers San Fran Super Bowl. Going into that game, I was really amped up for it because I'm an underdog kind of guy. And so that Chargers team making the Super Bowl that year made me really, really interested in that game. But it was an awful. Nate showed me. It was an awful game. But that Super Bowl sticks into my mind as one that I was really, really interested in and looking forward to. And then it was just a mess. And I don't hate the Niners or Steve. I didn't really hate anybody on the Niners. I just wanted the Chargers to win so bad as the underdogs that they were. And that game stunk.
I remember that being the first time, maybe not the only time, but definitely the first time. I watched it and I said, this can't be the Super Bowl. I'm going to wake up and this is just going to be a November Thursday night, or back then it would have been Sunday night game, because there's no way. There is no way these are the two best teams in the NFL.
No. One of them was. The other one. the other one. They left the loop at home.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Jabronis, we're live from Nippers. Hang with us, please.
Can't get enough of the Philly sports jabronis? Want to get together over tea and scones and share with us your life story? No thanks. We hate tea and scones. But we do have a website you can visit that offers all the jabroni action you can handle. Go to www.phillysportsjabronis. That's JABRONIS.com. Yahoo! The Philly Sports Jabronis are everywhere. We're online. We're streaming through the internet airwaves.
Can you hear me?
We're probably hiding in your bushes.
Hey, get out of there.
Oh, and we have social media pages. Find us on Facebook and on Twitter at Philly Sports Jabs. And for God's sakes, trim your bushes. It's like Jumanji in here. Who are your top 5 Philly outfielders of all time? What's your pick for the top 5 all-time Philadelphia sports jerseys? Who are the top 5 Philly athletes you'd never let babysit your kids? Let us know by visiting My Top 5 at phillysportsjabronis.com and let us know. Again, that's My Top 5, and the website is phillysportsjabronis.com.
Philly Sports Jabronis. Got some dry mouth. Philly Sports Jabronis, we are back live at Nippers on this Football Thursday. Of course, you may be hearing us on Wildfire Radio and or The Grueling Truth. Okay, so real quick, I was asked to summarize why I could actually hate the Patriots more than the Cowboys and why I could root for the Patriots in a Super Bowl had they go up against the Cowboys.
Right. Yeah, I guess my curiosity here goes like this. I understand they beat the Eagles under what some consider less than even playing field.
Sure.
And I understand the oversaturation or what have you that comes with a now 17-year dynasty from a team. But what is it about the New England Patriots specifically that would allow you to root for, I think we all agree, Philadelphia's most hated professional sports franchise in a winner-take-all scenario?
The Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys in a winner-take-all scenario. Why the Patriots? What is it that would, say the Cowboys had made the Super Bowl this year. It wasn't a totally unrealistic outcome. You would really be wearing blue and silver on that?
I wouldn't be wearing blue and silver, but I would not be rooting for the Patriots. And
okay,
so basically,
why?
I'm not going to. I can't. There's not enough time to break down the minutia of why I did. Because you're kind of asking. Well, you're asking two. It's kind of two different questions. One is why do you dislike the Patriots? The other is how could you root for Dallas? So I'm going to focus on how. I'm going to focus on
the Dallas part.
It's a one-word answer, which is jealousy.
No, it's not.
And we have to accept that. We have to accept that.
Hear me out. When I look at the Dallas Cowboys on the field now, I don't harken back to the Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irving, Deion Sanders. I don't, that is long gone. Will I ever hate a team more than the Jimmy Johnson era Cowboys and how they ended Eagles seasons or impacted Eagles? No, absolutely not. But that is a long time ago. I'm talking about now. I'm talking about now.
Genetically exposed to hate the Cowboys. There's nothing that can ever stop where I won't hate the Cowboys.
And that's
I'm a
fair.
U fan, so I love me some Jimmy Johnson. So I had no problem with
That's
Cowboys.
fair. Growing up, I hated the Cowboys. And then sometime around 1999, 2000, Andy Reid kind of started making them his bitch, and
Around that time, Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith
right,
and Troy Aikman retired.
For whatever the reasons, and there's a lot of reasons, but the Cowboys became insignificant for a long time. Okay, the Cowboys have never beaten the Eagles in a Super Bowl, right? The Cowboys have never beaten the Eagles in an NFC Championship game, right? Okay. So as much heartache as the Dallas Cowboys caused me and a lot of people in the 90s, that's dead and buried.
Water under the bridge.
So that's really what it comes down to. As long as this Patriots core exists, and right now we're really talking about 2-3 people, I will root against them no matter who they're playing against. And I do feel like a lot of the Dallas quote unquote hate that exists today is kind of contrived. It's not the same. I want nothing will ever duplicate the Eagles versus Jimmy Johnson Cowboys, and I personally am not going to pretend that it's the same. I hate New England. Like I said, I would dance with Tom Brady on a volcano. I will not. I will lead.
So is it just the outcome of that game?
No, I do not like them. And in fact, I didn't hate the Patriots from Jump Street. In fact, talk about me having the underdog mentality. When the Drew Bledsoe Patriots, I was a huge fan of. I mean, he brought that franchise out of misery, and that's kind of like I liked that. That's the kind of sports fan that I am. And it took me a while to, even when the Eagles lost the Super Bowl to the Patriots, I didn't just all of a sudden start hating the Patriots. I do believe in, the reality of Spygate, and I'm not gonna peel the onion, but when the league destroys the evidence, that to me says that it's real, and so you've got that. The Deflategate stuff, obviously, all the stuff that comes up, right? So I'm just going to just really bring them up real quick. Tom Brady, I was a fan of Tom Brady up until Deflategate, not because of deflated footballs, but because over the course of 24 hours, he went from chastising people for even asking the question to knowing that he got a phone call, a letter, an email, all the above, saying, like, you better not minimalize the significance of this to football and the NFL, and the next day he was changing his tune. He's just a fraud. He wears ugly boots. He kisses his children with an open mouth kiss, and I just don't like him. See, this is why I didn't want to talk about this. This is why I didn't want to talk about this.
Where are we going here? He did win a Rose Bowl and an Orange Bowl, however, so all is forgiven.
I would root for Dallas and New England as long as this New England regime exists.
That's your friend.
I don't know what to say. I will say one thing. Take a trip down and watch a Dallas Cowboys-Eagles game at their stadium down there, which I did this past December, and you'll reinvigorate your hatred for the Cowboys because they're terrible people.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting I like the Cowboys. I'm just saying if push came to shove, I could not stand there and watch and root for New England to win a Super Bowl.
It's just someone who's as hardcore an Eagles fan as you are. I'm trying to put myself in that place with Ohio State.
But does right?
What would another Big Ten school have to do to make me say, you know what, I want to see Ohio State beat this school? I haven't come up with it yet. Penn State scandal, Michigan State scandal, I still can't bring myself to dislike them the way I do Ohio State.
I don't know if other friends of mine will say that they trump the Cowboys hatred, but I do have many friends of mine that it's 1A, 1B, Cowboys, Patriots, like probably more so than the Giants nowadays. So this is a thing. You're not. I don't think you're isolated on an island.
Right.
Your reasoning's a little weird with the open mouth kissing and stuff.
Well, I feel like, but to be honest though, and we don't have time to continue to go in this, but when I do the things that I do bring up that are realistic, people who are just whether they're Tom Brady fans or they say they're fans of greatness, when you bring up more realistic stuff and try to make a case, that gets poo-pooed. So sometimes I feel like you have no recourse but to bring up potentially questionable kiss.
Okay.
My hatred for Dallas, I'll end with this. When I was a teenager, I used to take the number 9 bus up to Andorra to go see my girlfriend. And I'm sitting there waiting at the bus stop, and it was a playoff game where the Cowboys beat the Eagles. And I saw a door fly open and a man flung from the door out almost to the middle of Ridge Avenue, and I just laughed. I was half a block away, but I just laughed at it. See, he was in a Cowboys jersey, and the dude who did it was in a. It's always going to be that. So You go back to 1980 championship game, so it's always going to be us against the Cowboys, no matter what.
The sheer number of Cowboys fans in this area is staggering to me. I will say that.
Yeah.
And let me reiterate, I will not hate a franchise more than the 90s Cowboys. So if that gives me any kind of saving grace in people's eyes. All right,
that's what cost us the Super Bowl in 80 was we beat the Cowboys in the championship game, and we were so excited about that. We let down.
That's actually interesting that Jamie found a reason to blame the Cowboys for the Super Bowl loss, even though we beat them in the NFC Championship game in one of the greatest games in Philadelphia history.
Right to that one. My cheeks open.
All right, so we got right about 10 minutes left. I want to start this with Mike. So I kind of have a feeling sitting at the table here, he's probably got what would be, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, the most. The strongest tribute that any one of us could give to Roy Halladay getting elected into the Hall of Fame. No, I thought this was high on your list of talking points.
No, the high list for the talking points of baseball would be how Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame.
My God! Man, we got 10 minutes, not 10 days.
Yeah.
I don't really have. I mean, congratulations to Halladay. I think we discussed this for almost the whole podcast that one night. We pulled out the stats and comparing him to other pitchers, and some of you guys were saying, no, he's not. He doesn't deserve to even get in, let alone first ballot. And then we were processing it, and we're talking about some of the things that he did on the field, and he started late in his career, and I think by the end of like an hour conversation, I think we agreed that he deserved to be in. First ballot was still an issue. But ultimately, I thought he deserved first ballot. I'm glad he got it. And I love the decision that he's not having a hat on his plaque, because who knows what he actually would have wanted. He's not here to say, and his family doesn't want to put a hat on it. And I mean, he had the most years with the Blue Jays, but he probably had his most milestones here in Philadelphia. So congratulations, and I'm glad that Charlie's looking out for his kids. So that's a great side story to the whole thing.
Yeah. I don't know. He's certainly a Hall of Famer, but if he was alive, I'm not sure he would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. I know it's going to sound very unpopular and people are pissed about it.
Well, no, it's part of the. I mean, it's part of the conversation. It's part of the conversation.
To Carlos's point, the fact that Bonds, who's probably the best baseball player who ever lived, isn't in is astounding to me. So there's some hypocrisy going on there that I'm kind of getting jaded to, but definitely he deserves to be a Hall of Famer. I don't know that he needed to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Real quick, I'll echo what Mike said. Congratulations to Halladay. I never really followed his career, but I did have the chance to interview him once, and he is probably the most gracious, accommodating individual I ever worked with in the sporting arena. So absolutely well-deserved honor. I'm not too worried about whether it's first ballot or not. He's in the Hall of Fame, and he deserves it. I try to keep the New York stuff to a minimum, but I got to acknowledge Mariano.
Absolutely.
100% first ballot, first time ever, and
deserve unanimous.
I saw a stat the other day. More people have walked on the moon than have scored a run against Mariano Rivera in 142 innings of postseason baseball, which is just an unbelievable statistic.
Or at least the fake moon that was in CBS studios.
Yeah, we can do that. But I got to give that. I was born in 1979, and as a result of the fallout of Balco and the steroid era and whatnot, you can make a case, and I will make the case, that the all-time hits leader, the all-time home run leader, the all-time strikeout leader of my lifetime, and the author of probably the greatest single-season storyline of my lifetime in the sport of baseball are not in the Hall of Fame. The institution is basically rendered meaningless by those facts. That's Rose, Bonds, Clemens, and McGuire, for those who might not have followed along. There's different circumstances with the first guy, and I don't want to get into all that, but at some point, don't you have to examine what this institution, the Baseball Hall of Fame, was set up to do? If you want to write on his plaque, Barry Bonds is widely considered to have used steroids, I'm fine with it. If you want to write on Pete Rose's plaque, this man wagered on games, I'm fine with it. You want to go back a long time. You want to write on Ty Cobb's plaque, this man is a known virile racist. I'm fine with it. Write all that stuff, right? But don't take him out of the damn thing, because now, what do you serve to exist to serve?
Truth.
Okay, so I'm going to just sit there and go straight to Barry Bonds. Probably the best baseball player we've ever seen. They're ridiculous stats. There's two of my favorite. The first stat being this man, and this has nothing. Me and you can take all the steroids in the world, but we might have a problem with the stat. This man's only struck out over 100 times one time in his career, his rookie season. Pretty solid stat. Mm-hmm. My favorite stat for Barry Bonds is there's 3 people that reach base more times than at-bats in a season. Number 1 on that list, Barry Bonds. Would you care to guess who's number 2 on that list?
Barry Bonds?
Barry Bonds. Would you care to guess who's number 3 on that list?
Bobby Bonds? No, I'm just kidding.
Barry Bonds. I mean, say what you want about him and the steroids, whatever. That dude, even before you get to that point, that dude was heads and shoulders better than everyone. I love Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah, he's still got my vote. Yeah,
he's a great player. I'm in the school that he could not carry Barry Bonds' jacket strap. Simple and plain. I'll say it.
I've got Griffey as the best player that I've seen, and I don't think it's offensive for anyone to say that Bonds is better. I don't think it's offensive to Griffey to say Bonds is better than Griffey. I don't think it's offensive to Bonds to say that Griffey was better than Bonds. I don't think it's offensive to either one of them for someone else's opinion to be that this person is the best in the world. Carlos, you're bringing it down to
cool. I'll be offensive. I'll be offensive. I have no problem being offensive.
Can I ask one question?
Barry Bonds is that much better.
If you take the word steroids out of the argument, you can't say it. Is there any case for Griffey?
You mean as best ever?
Meaning,
or I'm sorry, as better out of both of them? Yes.
If I said to you, why do you think Ken Griffey is better than Barry Bonds? And I said, the rules are you cannot say the word steroids in making your case. Do you still have a case?
My answer would be that I think would put him past him in a relatively close race. I think he's a better outfielder.
Okay.
Barry Bonds has a whole bunch of gold
I know.
I'm not taking a position.
Yeah.
I just wondered.
No. I would say that Griffey as an outfielder would push him over. We got about 2 minutes here left. The whole steroid thing, I don't think that's what's keeping Bonds out and McGuire out. Hold on. It's contributing to it. At the end of the day, what is keeping them out more, Clemens as well, what's keeping them out more is, it's as of right now, it's still written in the criteria, integrity of the game. And now you're getting the real subjective material. I get it. So I'm not saying I think that should be written. I'm just telling you what exists. I'm not telling you what I think should exist.
It's steroids and media with Bonds. Simple and plain. Steroids and media.
It's more so because all 3 of them. Look at McGuire, Bonds, and
Roger.
and Clemens.
Okay.
It's the level of denial that they kept going and going and going and going. And I think that's why people are keeping them out. They're not going to be out forever. Now as things stand right now, they're still in. And Rob, I agree that the building, the aura of this thing is just. It's not what it was. I mean, we got a guy going in this year in Harold Baines, who basically everyone, and I think his mom even said he shouldn't go in. But so the thing is definitely losing its cachet. But there still to this date is something to be said for making players wait. And so while the percentages go up to on upward trends, there are enough voters who think that they are proving a point by making a player wait 3, 4, 5, 6 years. That's why they're not in yet. They're probably going to get in. Well, at least Bonds will most definitely get in. The other 2, it's a little bit more of an uphill battle. But that's why they're not in now. It's because that people want to just make them wait. They got 30 seconds.
It's the same crap I heard for T.O. for the Football Hall of Fame. It's one of those things where, all right, cool, you want to sit there and prove that point? Great. Who are you to sit there and say, I mean, at the end of the day, it's what they did on the field. even before you get to the steroids, saying Barry Bonds was the best player on the planet.
I don't care if they were shooting steroids in their ass in the dugout.
Jabronis,
during
talk
the
to you later.
Everyone else was doing it, so why are these 5 guys getting